Geordi takes the Enterprise to the upper line system. Riker thinks violent eruptions are awesome. And Sobe says, bye, Felicium. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Denise Crosby.
Woo!
Hello.
Hi, kids.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 21, Symbiosis, story by Robert Lewin, teleplay by Robert Lewin, and Richard Manning and Hans Beimler. Why did I say "and" twice in there? We'll find out later. Directed by Win Phelps. This was April 16th, 1988. And special thanks to Grandpa One, a.k.a. Tim Baum, for sponsoring this entire season. We salute you, sir. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
I'm saluting Grandpa. Good. Another gray, overcast, moody day in LA, but we're going to lift our spirits in spite of it.
It's beautiful
Win
over
Phelps.
here.
This is the first time we heard that name, huh? Win Phelps?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Makes me think of Michael Phelps.
It does. It makes
but
me
I don't
think.
Yeah.
He's the winningest Phelps I know.
Exactly. That's what I thought about. Real quick. So the reason you would say teleplay by Robert Lewin and Richard Manning and Hans Beimler is because it says Robert Lewin and written out and Richard Manning ampersand Hans Beimler. And when you have the and, it means that they've written it separately or doing their own thing. And when they have the ampersand, it means they're a writing team. And so you would say Robert Lewin and Richard Manning and Hans Beimler because they're a writing team. Apparently, at least they were for this particular episode. Just a little piece of trivia there between the A and D or using the ampersand when we're talking writing credits.
Speaking of the Writers Guild, that's locked in. That's right there. You know, a little bit of negotiation and in solidarity.
Mm-hmm. So
that's a little knowledge there. It's good to know.
Oh, and also let's just jump into what you were telling us last week, Denise. We weren't recording at the time, but you told Cirroc and me that this was actually the last episode that you shot, even though Skin of Evil was the last one that aired. And the last scene that you shot, presumably, was this one behind me, in which you jump out from behind Picard's head to wave to the camera for the first and only time that Star Trek has ever broken the fourth wall.
Right?
Oh,
there it is. Can you see that?
I didn't even see it when it happened.
Oh no, that's that happens at 42 minutes and 15 seconds in. I stopped because I haven't seen it in all these years. And I was, just curious. People talk about it for so long. That being what I believed would be my very last frame in The Next Generation. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't watched The Next Gen. If there's anybody living under a rock that hasn't seen
just
it,
me, just
tuning
me.
in, yeah,
just Cirroc.
There are more Cirroc. I'm going to say, I'm sure there are more of you out there. But anyway, that was a goodbye to the fans, and let's see, there I am.
Oh, you're literally waving straight to the camera.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Straight on. Broke the fourth wall.
And they allowed that? Nobody said...
Okay, so they said cut. Okay. And I mean, I totally thought... And then a cake came down and a celebration. And the producer showed up on the set to say, thank you. We wish you well and blah, blah, blah. And let's have some cake and celebrate your final shot. And then moving on. And I thought, well, wait a minute, they need to retake that shot.
So you did it just for the one take, right? I wanted to ask you about that. Did you guys do Did you do other takes, or you just shot it once?
That was just shot once.
Wow.
And
they didn't take it again.
And they didn't, and I wasn't going to say anything. I said, I'm not going to say anything. And thinking there's no way they can use this.
They're not going to use that.
There's no way. But either, and I would love to know the story behind the editing of this episode, because either they were forced to use it because they couldn't, it would be too big of a cut, a jump, and they didn't have any other to choose from.
Right.
Or they were in on it and just said, this is great and let's use it. But I doubt, I just think they were forced to use it.
Or maybe they didn't even notice, if that's possible.
I don't think they noticed. I don't think they noticed.
They might, well, come on, as an editor, you're watching over and over.
The editor should have noticed.
Yeah.
The editor should have noticed. But as the cameraman looking through the lens at the time, they're probably looking at the foreground, right?
Yes. They didn't, the director didn't even notice.
Right.
I mean, no one saw it.
That's hilarious.
But the editors had to have seen it, but they couldn't, they had no choice. They couldn't cut away.
Right.
Because I'm in the background.
You literally could have done a cartwheel back there.
I could have splashed them. Too bad I didn't unzip my suit and go.
Then they really would have kept it under their mattress.
They would have brought you back for season 2 if you had.
I'd have my own show. I would have had my own show.
Yeah.
That's a spinoff right there.
Tasha does Dallas, or something.
Yeah, it's really funny because a lot of people don't really notice it because it's kind of a blink and you miss it thing. And Picard and Beverly are having this intense moment. But since you told me about it, and since, there's kind of legend about it, I watched for it, but I only realized it right at the last second. I was like, oh, wait, this must be the scene. And right when I look, I see you jumping out. I was like, wow, how did I miss that? Because when you're looking for it, it seems so obvious because you do it quickly. You jump out and you say, hey.
Well, I want to give credit as well. Cirroc, you remember Richard Arnold, the legendary. He was Gene's.
We had him on the show just before he passed away.
Yeah,
so we could
he
get
had so many stories
out.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I mean, he was a walking, encyclopedic of Trek. So he was on the set that day, and he's the one who whispered in my ear, you should, do like a blooper, do a blooper, just they'll have to reshoot, but we'll have it. So he's the one who planted the seed. That was, not my idea. So then I just came up with, something like, hi guys, bye guys, see you. And that sort of is how that happened.
That guy's such a troublemaker.
Yeah. Trouble.
Well, they can blame it on the solar flares and the magnetic field causing your temperament to be.
Either that or Tasha was hitting up on the Felicium.
Well,
she seemed to know quite a bit
speaking of that, let's get into that whole Tasha scene with the Felicium explanation.
Yeah.
When she's having that discussion with Crusher,
just say no.
It was it seemed like she was almost reminiscing on her own experiencing or dabbling in some kinds of things like that. Did you get that sense?
Totally. I mean, what are you really saying, in this? I mean, she said, and again, I loved I loved that scene because it gives some insight into, again, where she comes from and just how messed up it was. And for her to understand, I mean, it was spoken by someone, it feels to me, that could only speak from experience. Yeah. Not observing, not someone observing that, oh, well, this is what happens when people do drugs. They want it more. And, it takes all the stuff away. It takes all the pain away. It dulls everything. I mean, she's talking about herself. So that's interesting.
I felt the same way. Yeah. And it was almost borderline kind of the feeling was causing you to like almost enjoy it or recall the sensation of the euphoria when you were kind of drawing back on it and thinking of it and recalling it. I felt like there was still a part of you that sees the good of that experience, right? It's like, yeah, it makes you feel great, and there's there were good things that I got out of it. Like I did get the euphoria, I did get this sense of feeling invincible. It helped her
escape the difficult times that she had on that crazy planet. Yeah,
but also to look at it this way, if you've ever talked to people in sobriety or recovery after drug addiction, and really they're away from it long enough, they can speak of it with candor and with like no apologies. Like, oh no, it was when I was doing it, I loved doing it. But I knew I would be dead. I wouldn't be, I couldn't stand here and talk to you about it if I would have continued down that line. But it was so good. It was so much fun. I had a great time being high. Yeah. And I did, but I'd be dead. So I got the sense that, that she cleaned her act up, obviously, to go, and maybe it was Starfleet that did it, or, the possibility of that, that she was, somebody took her under her, I mean, because you got to wonder, and this is the intriguing part about this particular character, because we do know she came from such a harsh failed Earth colony, Turkana 4, where rape gangs, and she's orphaned and had to make it on her own. How in the hell did she get to Starfleet?
Yeah. And the other thing I felt was, as smart as Wesley is, and when it comes to physics or chemistry or computers, he is a genius. But in certain elements, when it comes to a human lived experience of poverty and violence like that you had on your home planet, when you talk about the environment in which you have to survive and grow up, and this is something that's true for a lot of people in this world, they have to overcome their surroundings, the situations, gang violence, drugs, poverty. Criminality, poverty, and they have to overcome all of these things in their own daily grind to try to make something of themselves, to try to escape those conditions. And I felt like when you were making that distinction to Wesley, it was almost as if, Wesley, your privilege has allowed you to escape seeing this side of the conditions of humanity. You haven't seen and been exposed to this. But I'm telling you, Tasha, that this was my lived experience. I grew up in this kind of underbelly of society and kind of in this forgotten, left alone people that are just left for a dangerous future. I had to find a way out of that, which you did. And maybe you say drugs can make you feel good, on top of the world, until it doesn't anymore. And now you just have to keep doing it to just feel normal. Right. And I think that's the distinction you also made as you went on to explain the story.
Right. Then you're doing it just to not feel bad. And, that is a wonderful choice the writers made. It was really subtle. It was really sort of subliminally put there that Tasha would be the one to kind of illuminate that for this kid who has no street smarts whatsoever, and hasn't, has been overly protected by his mother, and doesn't even have a sense of what drugs are about, just can't even make the leap. So it was really, because in partnership with that, again, I thought when they go to discuss the rest of, they don't want to bring the what are they called? Not the other, not the people from Brecca, the
Ornarans.
Yeah. They don't want to allow them on the bridge. So Picard says, we'll take the rest of it in my room. And I thought, again, there should be someone from security. They're dropping the breadcrumb that these people, we know they're addicts, and how do we behave around addicts? They can flip a switch at any given moment. They can be dangerous. So he takes the doctor and the first officer. But, and then we see the guy get Riker in that electric grip. And Tasha earlier had said, I have to know how to defend against that.
Which I like that scene. Yeah.
Right. She kind of drops that note and then doesn't go with them.
Follow up.
Right. So there's a little bit of a disconnect. Obviously, she had to be there to deliver that speech to Wesley, but it could have been done maybe in another moment within the story, because she really, again, it doesn't make sense that she's not there.
I felt the same way, because when they first arrived on the ship and they fought each other with that electric grip thing that they were doing to each other, clearly they had some kind of power that we've never seen before, right?
Yeah.
So that to me is the first thing you have to notify the captain of. Like, the first thing that I'm going to go back and tell Picard, I'm going to say, listen, Captain, we beamed them aboard, but we ran into a slight problem. There was a fight over these goods that were beamed on, and we observed that they have this superhuman electricity type of power. I don't know what its effect on us would be, but I would suggest that we, quarantine them, or study more, or isolate them in their quarters until we learn more. Something that would notify Captain. And I felt
especially
that happened.
Not just that they have the ability, but they're also that they're violent people, like that they just sit there and start fighting each other. You got to put them in some kind of brig type thing just initially, just to be like, whoa, guys, we're not going to have this. You're a hazard here. Especially
for Tasha needs to figure out how to defend that, or what to, so them going off with the captain, with, these addicts who have that ability, makes absolutely
that the captain's not aware of at this moment. Neither is Beverly. Neither one of them know that they have this ability yet. Only Riker knows, and they didn't show him briefing anybody on their ability to do this.
Right. There's only that exchange with Tasha and Riker going down the hall. So we don't. I mean, I assume because Picard says something later like, "How are our quarrelsome guests?" So he obviously knows that they are not, that there's some beef between them. And I would imagine,
but more than quarreling would be, to me, the ability to have this electric shock ability.
That's like a superpower. Hello? That's a superpower. I mean, it's like, come on. And they both have it.
Right. Both of them have it.
Yeah, we didn't get much explanation on that either. And Riker froze. Like, it didn't just zap him. Like, it froze him. He was just stuck. Which was kind of funny, because I'm like, how long can somebody sit there with his mouth open? Like, he's probably like, can we knock it out in this last take, please. I don't want to sit here forever.
Yeah.
No one wants to see that anymore, okay?
Yeah, that's the first thing I'm telling Captain is that they have this ability. Not only that, but I think that Dr. Crusher should be aware of it because it might have some pertinence to the conditions that they're suffering from.
No
I don't know
question.
what I don't know what they're dying from, but it could be relative to this electric power that you are able to can do. I don't know.
Well, and also we're talking about this whole electromagnetic, like high intensity field we're in. What if, I mean, there's all this electromagnetic stuff going on all over the place. Does that affect them? Or can they tap into that? What if they tapped into that? They could just take over everything. It was like, wait a minute, we're throwing all this stuff out, but you got to connect the dots a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, though, I know we're picking apart some of the stuff, but as a whole, just watching the episode, I was getting a really good feel for Next Generation's formula, which is it's starting to really feel easy. They're getting more handle on their storytelling. Usually around the 12 to 17 minute mark, I'm looking to see like, oh, is this story going to move on any farther or not? And they're doing a better job of putting certain twists and turns and keeping the interest in me as the viewer. So, for example, we discover the people, they have this ability, we see them fighting, and then the debate about who the property belongs to. That in itself was a good kind of moral dilemma in which I was saying to myself, okay, in a situation where goods were being exchanged and those goods, well, the ship gets blown up and half whatever I gave you got blown up, who would be in the right? I thought that was an actual good kind of argument kind of to put forward to me as the viewer, because I would start to contemplate who would be in the right in this situation, right? If it just based on face value of what they're telling me.
Right. And then you add the added layer of human suffering that's involved in the cargo. And, where are you on this side? What moral values do you now have, and the dilemma? And, that is an interesting notion. Yeah, for sure. Just who gets who's, and again, you get to discuss the prime directive.
Right.
Really,
and I want to say Hans Beimler. I know, his writing is coming out to me because I see some of the similarities between how he did Deep Space Nine and what I'm watching here, as far as constantly escalating the stakes when you watch a show. And that's what he's doing when he presents us with the first, it's 6 people that need to get saved. Only 4 get saved. So boom, we're like, whoa, we just lost 2 people. You start off with a note. And then from there, you go on to the dispute over the goods. And then they raise the stakes even farther and make it about life or death for this civilization and for this planet. And even farther than that, about it being about drugs and all of that. So I think, to me, and I can't put my finger that it's Hans Beimler himself, but certainly as I'm watching these last couple of episodes with his name on it, I'm seeing a formula of writing and a pattern develop in which I'm starting to lean back in the captain's chair as I watch the episode and say, okay, this is the Next Generation. I'm going to get a nice sci-fi story.
Yeah, he's definitely. I agree. You're seeing a nuanced depth that's starting to happen that is different than what we're seeing in the beginning. Once he comes on board.
Well, let's hop over to our break in just a second here. Actually, let's just do it right now. It's the perfect time. Everybody stick around. We got way more to talk about. We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Denise Crosby, talking next generation stuff. Here are the Trivioids of the week, because you're all clamoring for them. As a precaution, the Enterprise goes to yellow alert. Riker thinks violent eruptions are awesome. He did say that, which was a little weird.
And you picked up on it.
Yeah, I was like, did he just say those violent eruptions are awesome? I was like, whoa, bro, calm down.
You're suddenly in the valley.
Yeah, show me your hands, Riker. Calm down. Wesley's console is overloading. The Enterprise's sensors are being severely affected by solar flares. The Enterprise is hooking up a replacement coil. Sobe says by Felicium. The crew of the Enterprise is dealing with some quarrelsome guests. The plant which yields the medicine Felicium grows only in remote areas of Brekka. Beverly Crusher is developing a very active dislike for these Brekkians. Riker's insides are shaking. The Prime Directive is not just a set of rules, it is a philosophy. Geordi takes the Enterprise to the upper line system. So this episode really took a turn for me. I didn't remember it. And the first 10 minutes were hysterical. I thought it was a comedy. I was like, I guess these are the precursor to the Pakleds. Everybody at home might know the Pakleds. They're a really dumb alien race and they act really stupid. That's kind of their shtick. They're also in Lower Decks. But these guys were like, I don't know. And they're like, you know how to fix a coil? Let me ask. Nobody here does it. And I was just like, are they dealing? Is this going to be a comedic episode? Because I was laughing so hard. This was the funniest episode we ever had.
Yeah.
And then we only come to, and then it takes a very severe turn into the dramatic. And then we can look back and realize, oh, they must have just been high. That's what it was. I get it now. And poor Tasha Yar was having the fight of her life trying to get them to understand Mark 268. They're like, what did you say? What? She's like,
Wait,
268, dude, you're going to die. And he's like, when they were saying, hey, come help us if you can. What do you mean if you can? You're about to die so much.
And Picard's reactions were so...
His reactions,
Are these guys for real?
Yes.
I mean, I guess they were just they were just jonesing for their fix. I mean, they were becoming delirious at this point. But it kind of changed. The tone changed once they were beamed aboard.
Yes,
like it would have been more interesting in a way that they would have kept that, like, wait a minute, we're just like, what is going on here? Who are you? Oh yeah, that's right. We're here now. And, just really, they kind of were in physical agony, but they were pretty focused on what they were, they got he was able to do his zapping the other guy and the whole thing. So it was a little inconsistent with what was going on the ship and, kind of pulled it together once they beamed on board.
Yeah. Little
I loved how, Denise, when you delivered the line when they were beamed on and they were starting to fight each other, and you said, "Stop this now!" And then you're like, "Behave yourselves, gentlemen." And the way you said it,
beautiful.
I loved it.
I
love the delivery.
Thank you.
I just love when it's lines are kind of played with in a subtle way, and they're delivered a little bit differently than I expect. And you put a softness on it instead of making it such a rough scene. You took a little bit of the edge off, and I liked that. That
was the exact note I put too. When it wasn't just the line specifically, but it was especially your delivery of it. It was a perfect delivery. Denise, I'm sure when you saw it, you thought that too. You're like, "Ooh, I nailed that line." Right?
Yes.
I watching it, today, I went, wow, that's cool how I said that. That was a good choice to make. But I felt overall Tasha in this episode really was sassy. She really had some sass and
I
some
think I thought so too. I thought the scene with you and Riker walking down the hallway, trying to work out, what to do next about this ability
yeah,
that you observe that they have. And he was like, precisely. And you're like, I'm going to look into it. And I got to check this out. We got to make sure this and that. And he's like, yes, yes, yes. And you guys are firing back and forth. I enjoyed that scene. I thought it was a
yeah,
great scene. It showed the teamwork that you guys were doing at the upper level of security and making sure that you were actually thinking out what logical next steps to take ahead. Like, hey, we have to make sure we have to do this, which is weird because they didn't follow up on some of those things that you mentioned in that scene.
right.
But I did like the delivery, and I liked the chemistry in there with you and Riker. I thought Picard really, just really nailed a lot of the facial expressions, and also carried the tone of the moral dilemma that he was dealing with. I thought he did an excellent job of that. Patrick Stewart, did a very good job of balancing listening to his crew and taking into consideration their concerns, but also staying true to his objective of executing his duties as captain and staying true to the prime directive. I thought that balance was really well done for Picard in this episode.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was terrific. Yeah, he really, he's got Beverly's strong appeal, her humanitarian doctor without borders, kind of like trying to, screw the prime directive. We're talking about human suffering here, okay? Like everything's, off the charts here, off the table. We don't. This takes over at this point, is what she's saying. So, how can we? You've got to act. So he's pulled. You can see the possibility of that, and his giving reason to that and understanding that plight. But he stays firm because he knows it works. Because when man gets involved, when we get involved with less developed civilizations, disaster follows, and it's what Star Trek, does best when they insert these little nuggets of philosophy and, human drama and concepts and provocations that sort of help you see mankind refracted back at you, but in ways that you can, you aren't lectured to, you make up your own mind, but it hits some truth inside of us. We've seen it now. We've seen the world when this can really go badly. And it was just a really well kind of designed episode for that.
Yeah, I thought that they did a really good job of just kind of presenting the episode bit by bit by bit. I don't know if the episodes are going to continue to improve or it's going to be more like blips for another season or two. But this one really showed off what Star Trek can be, I thought, in that there are some very strong dilemmas and you can see both sides of the dilemma. They presented a mystery, a very powerful mystery where we're all thinking, what the is going on with this ship? Why are they acting this way? What's going on? And they start revealing the mystery bit by bit. And we all kind of go, I get it. And Beverly Crusher pronounces it to be a narcotic. And we're like, I knew it. And I thought those two Ornarans displayed the symptoms of withdrawal so well. It was, by the way, do you know that a couple of those actors were actually in Star Trek 2, the movie, and one was in Star Trek 2 and 4. Captain T'Jon, one of the Ornarans, Merrick Buttrick was also in Star Trek 2. And let's see Judson Scott, I believe, the guy that played Sobe, the guy that said no drug for you. He was also in Star Trek 2, but Merrick Buttrick was in Star Trek 2 and 4. Anyway, just an interesting thing that...
And Richard Lineback, who played the other Honoran,
Romus.
He and I go back to the beginning of acting class together.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Really
he
long. Yeah. He was fabulous. I'd forgotten that he was in this episode, so it was nice to see him again. Can we just talk about Judson Scott's outfit?
Yes.
I mean, we're talking ABBA. That looked like they were in ABBA. That was something. Those Breckians. Wow.
Yep. Got some ABBA playing in my head right now.
That's some ABBA going on right there.
Yeah, you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
What do you guys think their favorite meal of the day is?
Oh,
come on.
Oh, no. Is this an ABBA inside?
No, it was a breakfast joke. But
okay. Oh, God, that went right
not
over
worth
my
that
head.
amount of time.
Wow. Wow.
I don't know if it was done intentionally, but the fact that they cast and dressed the Brexits a certain way and the Onarans in a different way, I felt like there was some purposeful casting done in that way. If you notice, the Breckons were all blonde hair, blue-eyed, kind of, wealthy, affluent,
oh, yeah.
They were depicted as essentially the elitists of what we see as the top 1% of the world. And then the Honorans were more like an average everyday worker, somebody who's got a 9-to-5 kind of look, brown hair, a little bit more scruffy. And there was, and even in the clothes, in the wardrobe, the colors are not vibrant. Yeah. They're wearing dull colors. So those things were done purposefully, I believe, because they wanted to show this kind of elite, like almost
like a two-tiered system there,
a two-tiered system, almost how Nazi Germany elevated the Aryans with the blonde hair, blue-eyed over everyone else, and this kind of superiority type of feel. I felt that was something that they played heavy on in the casting and the wardrobe.
Absolutely. You think of what we've gone through with the opioid crisis and, what we continue to go through with the opioid crisis and, the Sacklers, who developed OxyContin and their wealth, their enormous wealth with their dedications of wings of museums and galleries and educational buildings. And then all the people, the opioid addicts who, are losing their teeth and losing their homes and losing their health and have lost everything.
And their ideology is very similar to the one expressed in this episode, which I felt summed up the moral dilemma of this episode. When the Breckians say they exchange the necessities of life, or the necessities of life, in exchange for the necessities of living.
Yep.
Right. Big distinction.
That hit home for me as far as a construct, a societal construct in which people are, struggling just to have life, while other people are living this kind of extravagant, over the top lifestyle.
And Beverly hits that point home a little bit more with the line she says, "It's not a symbiotic relationship. This is exploitation."
Right.
And that's a very different thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. No question about it. Just as, if you read anything about what the Sacklers were doing with, OxyContin.
Exploitation.
And just pumping that medicine into, all kinds of doctors' hands and and they were rewarded for prescribing it and over prescribing it, and on and on and on until we get here where we are right now.
Yeah.
Hey, Denise, how come you know everything, by the way? She knows everything. She knows. You notice how in every episode she knows like 2 or 3 people too. Like, you are so well informed and connected.
Live around, stick around. You too will get there.
Maybe.
I've been at this rodeo a few years, so they start. It's a small world after all.
But sorry, Cirroc, you were saying.
I was going to say that the more I watch this, the more I see Data give me looks that Ryan, you give me, and I'm starting to.
Because we don't have emotions.
Yeah, it's like, who's copying who now? Because when Tasha was giving that whole drug speech to Wesley, Data kind of does one of these moves where it's like,
Yeah, I saw that too.
And I swear I was like, that's a Ryan face. That's one of Ryan's like, that's an awkward thing to be saying at this moment. And I just thought it was hilarious.
Well,
do you think of yourself too when you see that?
No.
It's just me. I was like, that's Ryan's.
Yeah, no, I did. Maybe it's subconscious. I'm just like, picking up on what he's doing. I feel like I'm probably more of a Kirk or a Riker, even though, I was never like the biggest Kirk fan. But yeah, I mean, Data's got, no emotions, so that works.
No, it's the looks. It's the comedic looks he does.
Yeah.
He's funny.
I thought he was looking at Tasha like, oh, this is more information about you than
a little bit.
No.
He's always studying.
Yeah, he's always gathering. It's like just the facts. So he's an info machine. So it's like.
But Brent is such a great comedic actor, just in general. So even the subtle things he does make us laugh and make us catch it, and there's always a little bit more, a little something cute, a little twinkle in his eye,
Yeah.
Even basic lines when Picard said in this episode, Data, I want you to scan their system and see if you can da-da-da-da. And he's like, I will try, Captain. And the way he says it, I swear there's some there's a little bit of condescension. Even it's a little bit of condescension in there,
Or when they get the quantity of the Felicium, or and Felicium, and he goes, actually, it's 3 point. I mean, it has to. He just can't let that. He doesn't have that. Filter. We got it, Data. He's just so nerdy and funny.
He is a nerd.
Yeah,
problem. I love it. I love it.
Well, let's talk about the home run of the day today. We may have a few to pick from today, it seems. What do you say, Denise? Who gets the home run of the day? Who knocked it out of the park?
Gosh, I go back and forth. I mean, I definitely want to acknowledge Patrick in this, Picard in this episode. He just really took us with him on this sort of compassionate kind of analogy and assessment of the situation. He didn't just make a decision, don't question my authority. It was really, he really wanted to hear everyone out and listen in what you would hope a leader would do, that they wouldn't just exert the rules are the rules, don't question the rules, You don't get to question the rules. That it would be everything. Let's lay everything out and really get what this is about in this moment. And the truth will win out. The best decision can be made from out of that. So, and it was really well modulated, and he took us on that journey with him. That being said, though, I thought the guys, the Anarans were fabulous. That's a really tricky tightrope to walk, drug addiction, their symptoms, their relief when they do get what they need. I thought it was beautifully done. And, I know Richard, I've seen him do tremendous. Richard Lineback, who played one of them, I've seen him on stage, and he is a terrific actor, and he just brought a lot to the role. And so I think I'm going to give the home run to those two guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on Picard for those same reasons. I love the way that he, showed his leadership skills in this episode. I thought it was the way I want to see a leader kind of handle it, weighing out everything, not overreacting. He didn't lose his temper. Sometimes he has a short temper and he gets irritated about things. I thought he was more patient and calm and reserved and measured in this episode. I liked his approach. I liked his observation when it came to seeing that something was wrong, how they were responding to him on the other end. When he says, "Would you like me to come and do this?" And they're like, "If you want," and he was looking like, what's going on here? What am I dealing with? Loved his facials in this episode. Also really loved the scenes between him and Beverly, who I'm going to give also the home run to in this episode. I thought Dr. Crusher did a great job of challenging, speaking up for herself, being assertive, but also not getting in the way of what I thought was the best decision in the end, because there were moments when I agreed with what she was saying. But in the larger perspective, I agree with Picard at overall analysis of what should be done. So, but there were moments when I'm just as passionate as her, like, yo, there's lives on the line. What are we going to do? We're going to sit here and have the cure and not give it to them, like over some kind of monetary exchange, like, pay the debt and buy it or whatever. I was thinking of those kinds of resolutions for this conflict. But I think overall, when you talk about the Prime Directive and you talk about what his analysis of getting in the way of other people's customs and traditions, I think he's accurate in the kind of decisions he ended up making in the end, which is, I'm going to back out of this. He said at some point, says, "Where do you want to go?" He says, "I don't care. Just get me as far away from here as possible."
Yeah.
So nice. The two of them are my big home run hitters for this episode.
Yeah, similarly, I thought the beginning was so hysterical, not just because of what the people were saying, but because of Picard's reaction to them. And when he said, "What's the matter with these people?" I died because he's just so funny. He was just like, what's going on here? But I too want to give the home run to the two Onarans because what were their names again? Merritt Buttrick and Richard Lineback, because the way they played, especially the withdrawals, is what told me that this was a drug before the story told me that. So they were able to act it so well that I recognized that without them yet telling it or hinting at it. And I just thought that they absolutely nailed it. They were not acting like sick people. They were acting like people with withdrawals. And beautifully done, great understanding of what that is. Whether they watched it a lot or had their own themselves, I don't know, but they nailed it, and they should be commended for it. let's talk about people that should also be commended. And those names are Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey, Bill Victor Arukin. Guess who else? Titus Moeller, Darlena Marie, Dr. Mohammed Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, the enigma known as DQ, Neil Akasaka, our pal Justine Norton-Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, my live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, who, by the way, I thought looked like one of the actors. What was his name? Justin Weir looked like Romas a bit to me. Also, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, who's going to Star Trek Las Vegas for the first time, it looks like, Jed Thompson, Marcia Classic Schreier, Brandon Gant, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Okun. Thank you all very much. Stick around. We're going to come right back for the free-for-all on the Seventh Rule. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule. This is the free-for-all. Guess who joined us? Melissa Longo and her kitty.
Yeah.
We also have Allison Leach Hyde here. We've got Eve England out in Wales, virtually here, though. Stephanie Baker in possibly Seattle, which is what we were talking about earlier. And the Dark Lord Chris McGee, he's ever present, omnipresent, I guess. We've got Marcia Classic Schreier. Tierney C. Diekman has returned. We've got Mai live in Tokyo, sporting an awesome Tuvok Rock shirt, and Homer Freezy judging us all. All right. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
I think this was a good one. I would say, boy, these IMDb's have been a little bit lower than what I think they should be. So I'm going to say a 7.6, 7.5, 7.6.
Does anybody else have a guess?
I have a guess. I'm going to go with what will be the number one draft pick in the NBA lottery, 7'5".
Very good. Victor Wembanyama is 7'5".
Yeah.
Excellent. When you said that, though, I was making sure that you were going to get it right because a lot of things are saying 7'3", some are saying 7'4", but now he's 7'5". So well done. Any other guesses?
I'm going to be a pessimist and say 6'9". Yeah, 6 something.
Oh, wow.
Got an issue with some of the messages happening in this show today, but yeah, I'm going to go lower.
I was going to say the same, 6'8", 6'9" max.
Well, oh, Eve England's like $1, €1, £1.
What does Eve say?
What did you say, Eve?
6.7.
6.7.
Yeah.
Going down, huh? This thing will be a 5.3 in no time.
No, I'm going to go higher.
Bogues.
I'm going to go higher. I think it's going to be like 7-8 because there's 2 guest stars from The Wrath of Khan.
Excellent knowledge.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Tierney and Mai get the Tierney C. Diekman Award of the day. It is a 6.9 today.
Surprising.
What?
Mai got it first, though.
Still love you, Cirroc. No problem.
This is the same guy that does the top 10
My weight
pilots for
didn't have
Star Trek,
anything
I'm
to do
sure.
with it, did it?
What? Oh, your wave. No, that's not as high as it did.
Well,
6.9.
Melissa Longo. Oh, no NAMs today, right? No non-appearance mentions. I don't think we caught any, right?
Homer, what do you think?
I didn't catch any. I don't usually catch
right.
them, but I can be judgy when they're mentioned.
You?
Yeah.
Judgy?
Oh, especially if there's some sort of
Called
metaphysical
upon.
or philosophical NAM.
Yeah.
All right, Melissa Longo, please get us started and on track. What do you think of this episode?
think it was an interesting episode. I may be in the minority here, judging by people's guesses, but the thing that is striking me with these episodes, particularly in the later part of the season, is the questions they're asking. They do pose some very interesting questions, and I really like Beverly Crusher. I am really becoming a big fan of Beverly Crusher because her objective is always the same. She is consistent about her wanting to improve the health and wellness of everyone that she interacts with. Doesn't matter what kind of species, alien they are, and that is her prime objective. Where Captain, I was going to say Captain Sisko, Captain Picard, his objective has to be different from that. He has to uphold the prime directive. And I think that's where the interesting question comes into play. So, and I like the fact that they touched upon not imposing their own cultural beliefs on other species or planets and what have you. And he has to stay true to that. And he worked within the system to kind of skirt the prime directive in not helping them advance technologically with the freighter stuff. And I have to bring up the line that Tasha Yar says, "Behave yourselves, gentlemen." I love it.
That's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. One question I did have about this episode, though, is that how are these people who are addicted to this substance able to exist in a society? How is their society even able to function?
That's a good point.
I don't know how they even are able to fly the freighters out to get the drugs that they need. So,
because nothing can stand in between a drug addict and their drugs.
They'll figure it out.
As we know, in our culture, in our current state of this moment in 2023, there are plenty of addicts who are contributing. They're functioning at different levels. There are functioning addicts who are in high-level positions right now. I've certainly met a few. There are people who are on the streets that are non-functioning. So it's, I could see where, like the guy who beamed in, like the leader, that brief moment, Mordant or whatever his name is. He was, he was in a nice, he wasn't in, hokey ragtag kind of clothing that they tried to put the other guys in. He was in a leadership kind of thing that we've seen Star Trek use with a background and so clearly they have some sort of societal situation and functioning society. They get like 72 hours on a fix before they need, another one. So whatever they're doing, they seem to be able to produce something that allows them to get this substance. What that might be, who knows? They didn't go into details about it, but it's amazing how people can, function as addicts. It's done all the time.
All right, everybody, the time you've been waiting for. Allison Leach Hyde is here She's going to tell us all what she thinks about this particular episode.
Hello.
Oh, there you go.
It's not one of my favorites. It never has been. They showed it so many times when I was a kid. It was like on every 3 days.
Just say no.
Yes. So, and it was at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. So yeah, there was a lot of that being pushed, and not a lot about helping people. So we helped them by leaving them alone and hoping that the ones who were the bad guys, just don't come back. I would think they're smart enough to figure out how to, if they don't have transport ships, fix them to come back. Because when your one way of making any sort of money is needing to be delivered someplace, you make sure you have transportation. So that was a hole for me that didn't make sense. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they would have had that figured out and not left it up to the people who needed it. They would have made sure they could have gotten the medicine or red lentils to them. I love that. So that was my big hole. I'm like, why would they not have transportation? The Brachians. There we go. Brachians. Yeah. And I love the picture behind Melissa. That was my favorite, that we got 2 episodes in a row of Riker going in electrical fields. So yeah. But Beverly has some great lines.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite one was, it's hard to be philosophical when facing suffering. Because she's right. They should have actually helped.
It's a great line. All right.
And thank you for waving, Denise.
Yes.
What? Huh?
For the wave. I'm thanking you for waving for all of us forever and ever. Thank you for waving.
You are so welcome. Personally welcome. Listen, that was for all of you guys.
Eve England is out in Wales. This is also the first time she's seen this episode, but she definitely caught the wave too. Oh wait, wasn't that Coke's thing? Catch the wave? Coke, she caught the wave, everybody. What do you think of this episode?
Yeah, I did, and it was thanks to the companion that I read that little tidbit before I watched it, so I was keeping an eye out for it, because I don't think I would have spotted it, if I'm completely honest, the first time, because it was a bit of a blink and you miss it moment. So I'm really glad I knew about that, because it was just so cute. That was definitely the best moment of the episode in my view. And I know that I'd have to go back and watch the first part, because I'm sure you talk about a bit more about how that came about and all of the background and context to that. So I'll look forward to going back and listening to that. I mean, Alison and Melissa pretty much covered the main comments I had, but I think I did struggle a bit with this one. I just found it was a bit too preachy. It was a bit too much of a kind of good versus evil. It was almost like the message, there was no subtlety in it. As you had this, they kept talking about this symbiotic relationship, but as Beverly kept saying, it was a clear breach of trust of one party against the other. It was pretty much a big planetary cartel of drugs with these other guys. So I kind of felt that some of the messaging could have been done better, but it just felt a bit too black and white in terms of the argument. So I felt they could have added a bit more subtlety in there. I mean, everything was just so binary. So, even with the costumes, you had those almost like the godlike Breckons, and then you had the other guys who were more like sort of peasant farmers, and how the drug dealers were so arrogant and they were just so horrible and smarmy, and you just immediately disliked them. So the whole thing just kind of set it up that they were the bad guys and these were the good guys. And then it frustrated me then, I think, as Alison said, that Picard decided not to do anything about it, because I didn't feel that his then argument about that we shouldn't interfere. We have a society interfered when people do bad things, and I felt that was probably the wrong decision in the way that they presented these guys. There was no nuance, there was no subtlety there, so I just felt that he made the wrong decision there. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, I love the lentils. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. it didn't quite. I think it had a potential to be a really good episode, but it just fell short. But again, the wave really saved it for me.
Thank goodness for the wave. Good stuff. Thank you, Eve. Stephanie Baker is hanging out. She's ready to go. How are you? What do you think of this one?
Hi, everybody from Seattle. I like this episode. I would have given it probably a 7.8, 7.9, maybe because of my age. I was a teenager when I first saw this. But when I rewatched it this morning, I realized that the scene where Lieutenant Yar explains addiction to Wesley with Data kind of listening and doing a side-eye thing, that definition of addiction, I carried that through still to this day, as some of it has some value. And as some of you know, I'm a doctor, and I do think that sometimes when dealing with patients in addiction in my doctor career, that those words that Tasha said to Wesley resonated with me, of how to have compassion for people with addiction. Even though Picard didn't have compassion, Tasha's words were compassionate towards people with addiction. I like that. I am on Team Crusher on this one, and I would have told the Anarans the truth because they were suffering. And I really struggled with Picard mansplaining to her in the turbo lift. That was just, that was hard to. I don't remember that annoying me in the past, but it sure bothered me today. That's about it.
Yeah, there was definitely a tone there. Nice message, bit of a tone. Somebody that never has a tone, even though he's the Dark Lord. Chris McGee is here. He gives it to you straight. What do you think of this episode?
And don't you forget it. So this episode was a very memorable one, as have many people have already said. And even, setting aside the after school special portion of it, it was a nice Prime Directive episode, as if we hadn't had enough of those already. But it was nice seeing, as was previously mentioned, Merritt Butcher in here, who played Kirk's son in Star Trek 2 and 3. And of course, Judson Scott was also in Star Trek 2. One thing that I thought was quite interesting, and Melissa brought up, and Allison called this a big plot hole, about, why didn't they keep the transportation alive if they knew that that's what their entire civilization depended upon? Well, tangential to that is, I guess the Onarans don't believe in keeping a stockpile while they secure additional quantities. They wait until they run out and then go try and get some more. I guess they live paycheck to paycheck. I don't know. As Stephanie mentioned, the memorable quote for me is the one that has absolutely resonated with me throughout the years, which is, before you know it, you're taking the drug not to feel good, but to keep from feeling bad.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. That was a big line there. Marcia, classic Schreier. What's up? How are you? What do you think of this particular episode?
Okay. I'm coming to you from the Jersey Shore, by the way.
Nice.
It's a gorgeous day. Anyway, I'm also in Camp Crusher. My favorite line of hers was, "This is not a symbiotic relationship, it's exploitation." And I totally agreed with her. There was almost something encouraging and optimistic about the way that she didn't figure out that it was drug addiction until like halfway through the episode, which led me to believe that maybe in the 24th century, we've conquered that. There aren't a lot of civilizations that suffer from addiction, and she didn't recognize it. So there was that. I loved Tasha in the cargo bay. She was totally in charge, and whenever there was a security situation, she didn't wait for orders from anybody. She just went for it. And it's just another example of, as you're leaving, you're getting more and more and better stuff to do. But And my last point, I think Picard being so forceful about the Prime Directive is an attempt by the writing staff or the producers or Gene Roddenberry himself to separate Next Generation from TOS, where Kirk ignored the Prime Directive as often as Picard follows it. So I'm thinking that may have had something to do with it. I don't know. I wasn't there. And finally, it was watching it today. I rewatched it today, knowing that Merritt Buttrick was really ill.
Right.
Just, gave a real twang.
He
Really?
passed away of AIDS like a year later, if I remember correctly.
Not even a year later. I did a little reading, and it turns out he didn't have health insurance at the time. He couldn't get it because he was suffering from AIDS, and so this was an attempt to get him a little money, so he can survive.
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. Good stuff.
Oh.
Thank you for that, Marcia. Tierney C. Diekman is here. I think I just got a glimpse of what your shirt actually says. Everybody listening in, it says acid in words and in colors.
I didn't just wear that for comfort.
That's relevant to this episode. What do you think of this episode?
Chris, I knew you'd appreciate it. Well, you ever finish an episode and you just have to take a moment to groan loudly, heavily, disappointingly? That was this episode to me. Always has been. This preachy, jumbled mess, and luckily, Melissa, Allison, Eve, Marsha, all of you that have spoken so far, you've covered a lot of the points that I wrote down in my notes. So I'm glad there's a lot of agreement here in the points that it did bring up, but it just feels like a heavy-handed message episode, but not a good one, not well thought out. There are times we look at this entire series and think, this could have been better if it was just a little bit more fleshed out. And then other times, it's not that it didn't get fleshed out. It just is the writing just wasn't where it should have been and wasn't going to be. It just feels disjointed. But I appreciate things with this episode, such as we get some great sci-fi kind of veteran guest stars with Merritt Buttrick and Judson Scott, especially. I see him, and I think Absalom from from X-Files, and he did how many Star Trek series and other things. He wasn't even credited, I don't believe, in Wrath of Khan. He's done lots of things. So I like seeing some of these actors in a different element, and there are some good points. There's the very distinctive class structure between, we're going to put him in work clothes and look at their down home overalls, and they're clearly the worker class, and then we have the sparkling, glittering metallics and pale, upstanding suits and dresses of our big pharma planet, and but that's kind of all there is. We learn what it is, and it feels almost like Crusher is the only one in reality here of what's happening. I don't feel like Picard in general would have really acted there he is would have really acted as he did, as this episode wrote him, knowing what was actually going on, Prime Directive or not. This is Starfleet. We interfere in the Prime Directive all the damn time. But I have a hard time enjoying this episode. I can find the positives, but they're more in some costume design. There's some great lines that everyone has mentioned here. But it's very of its time. It's the era of DARE, which I'm sure many of us have all gone through the school assemblies and looked at them at the time and went, oh God, drugs are bad. And then we get older and we learn more and more. And then the the speech from Tasha to Wesley, which the only thing I can justify with Wesley, with his mother being, ultra fantastic space physician, is him not knowing the mechanism of drugs and addiction from her, is that it's just so uncommon in the Federation, or on Earth at least, what we know of, that's where his naivete comes from. But it still seems too preachy to please somebody to get ratings. I don't know. It's just a little off to me. But then it just ends with, I don't remember who was at the con at the time, but just to Picard, well, where do you want to go from here? I don't care. He is just so done. And I feel like it was Patrick Stewart in real life of let's just be done with this. I just can't do it anymore. And it's a little funny to me too, because he's the captain of the ship. He's not the one putting out the mission orders. They're supposed to survey this sun, which they haven't done yet. They encountered these people. Mm-hmm. They haven't completed this mission, and he's just like, I don't care. Screw it. We're not doing it. He's just done. We're not completing our mission. And they're gone. We never touch on this again. We don't even know, like, they have these powers. Look at Melissa's background with this great thing of Jonathan Frakes, who had to sit there in this position. I really hope it was one take. And we never hear anything about it. Like, that could have been great character traits, anything. It just feels like many hula hoops were jumped through to complete this episode, and I can't enjoy it. I can't. The best thing is Denise's wave. It's the best part, and it's what keeps it iconic. It is that. And we love you for it.
It is a good
we love
wave.
you to the end of time for that wave.
Oh God, back at you.
Great stuff. All right, Mai is live in Tokyo, and she's got a pretty darn good wave of herself. I've seen it twice. What'd you think? What'd you think of this episode?
Star Trek is not firing on all cylinders this episode or the one before it, but I found some interesting stuff in this. I love the way they called the system the Delos system, because that's the island where these two figures, Artemis and Apollo, were born, and they're the twins, and so they're opposites of one another. One represents the night, one represents the day. One is light, one is dark, one is good, maybe, I don't know. But the whole thing is that they can't exist without each other. They're two sides of the same coin, and one without the other is just, it's inconceivable. So you have to have that. I think that was really cool. I like the way they called the drug Felicium, because it comes from felice, happy in Italian, feliz in Spanish. Mm-hmm. I thought that was kind of cool, which made it weird because they were saying this drug makes you happy instead of makes you healthy. So they were actually playing it up as a drug by using that name, I thought. So the other thing I wanted to say was, if you find yourself in a position to help somebody or give strength to somebody to find their own strength to deal with substance abuse, and you do not, you really need to rethink what kind of friend you are, because that's not okay. As a recovering addict myself, substance abuse is not something to be taken lightly. It's not something that you take advantage of. People, you help the people that you help will spend a lifetime being grateful to you for having helped them find their own strength to regain their lives. So this is what this episode spoke to me very loudly about. I hate the fact that they made fun of this, that they made addiction a light thing that they could use on a TV show. It's a real thing, and we need to address it better than they did in this episode, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Good knowledge.
A little light knowledge for you there.
Thank you, Mai. Homer's got light knowledge too.
Very, very
emphasis
light
on
yeah. Super light.
How are you, Homer? Notes. We missed you.
I'm great.
What do you think?
Thank you. So I think mostly everything has been covered, and at the risk of covering something you talked about before, and I don't think you touched on this level of detail, because sometimes I ask a question that no one else will ask. Okay, so this is for Denise. For the wave, did you figure out, all right, I'm going to wait for this person to pass, and then Beverly and Picard are like goalposts, and I'm going to do the wave right then? And was it just one take?
You know, it was so spontaneous and so of the moment. And this being the final, what I thought, we know that's not true, but what I thought would be my very final frame in Star Trek: The Next Generation. I wanted, in my mind, I was making a blooper. Obviously, I was as a memento, as a gag reel. They can't use it. How can they use this? I'm breaking the fourth wall and I'm waving goodbye. It's clearly I'm waving goodbye. And then they cut and a cake appears. Rick Berman appears. The producers appear on the set. And it's like, oh, for she's a jolly good fellow, thank you. Oh my God, we've loved you. Let's have a little break. Let's all have some cake. And that's when Rick pulled off my communicator badge from my uniform and said, well, you won't be needing this anymore. And as he was thanking me for, and wishing me luck, and so everybody broke for cake, me thinking, okay, we got to go back to work. And it was like moving on to the next setup. And I'm thinking, well, they can't use that take. I mean, I started to think, who's joking who? Was that just a complete fake scene to mess me up? But then they moved on, and I thought, well, I'm not going to say anything. And we moved on. And I thought, wow, okay, obviously this was just, I don't know what this is. I've never been but they can't use the scene. And I didn't know until I watched it air, just like everyone else in the world. And I went, oh my God, how could they do that? And to this day, I don't know the backstory of the editing process. Obviously, it was missed by the cinematographer, by the director, and they didn't have anything. They had no choice but to use it.
It is so great. So when I was watching, I didn't realize like that. I thought, okay, they want to do this and they want it to be, and they want it to be very subtle. So I was watching for it. I missed it the first time. And then I caught it and I was like, I had this picture up before, and it looked to me from that viewpoint that Patrick Stewart was actually leaning a little bit out of the way so that you could be seen even a little bit better. But
they did not, they were not in on it. No one was in on it. But full disclosure, like I said to Ryan and Cirroc earlier, and you'll hear it, there was a gentleman, I don't know if you guys, oh, well, yeah, because he was on the show, Richard Arnold, who was Gene Roddenberry's right hand and an archivist and the extraordinary, holder of all things Star Trek, the knowledge. And he was on this, he came down again to, wish me good luck and thank me, and tapped me on the shoulder and whispered in my ear, you just do something funny for the gag reel. Just mess up this shot, mess up the next shot. And that's what put the seed into my head, because in all honesty, I wouldn't have thought to do something, but he planted the seed. And so this is what, and Patrick, nobody ever mentioned a thing. They were clueless. Which put a footnote on this conversation, because as we come up to yesterday's Enterprise, I'll share with you another moment where Patrick was absolutely clueless as to my shenanigans.
Awesome. Thank you.
I love it.
Yay.
Wow. Stay tuned for that.
I'm a clown at heart, so, and Patrick at this point was so damn rimrod straight and so damn boring. I'm sorry. I love him. He's an amazing actor, and he's gotten much more humorous, in his later life. But right now, what you're watching, it's really, he has no distinction between doing Stratford upon Avon and, shooting Next Generation. And it's all just the same rigorous situation, which it wasn't.
All right. Good stuff. Now, thanks, Homer. Denise, Cirroc, any final thoughts on this episode before we close the book on Picard being humorous or femur, whatever? Sorry, Homer.
Well, this episode is so interesting to me for a number of reasons, but actually I gained some knowledge watching it today. Obviously, this is my last episode, which I perceive as going to be my last episode. It ends up, this was yesterday's Skin of Evil. The script was ready before this Symbiosis. So, which really I'm grateful for, because it would have really been hard to shoot Skin of Evil as my final episode, given the content of the episode. But so this was my last episode. And knowing that, it was so interesting for me to watch the episode today, knowing I know that I'm leaving. And it was one of the sassiest, spunkiest. You see Tasha. So it was like, oh no, I'm going out. I got this. I mean, I was hitting all kinds of colors and notes, given whatever, I had to do. Tasha was in full command. There was no hinting whatsoever, I thought, in my performance or in this episode of what's to come. So that was really cool. The other thing that we sort of talked about in the podcast is the speech, the just say no speech to Wesley, even though it's very on the nose. I think what's more interesting, what's revealed, is that Tasha had a drug problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I got too. Yeah.
There's no question. Now, I never took that into consideration. My focus on backstory was her trauma of being an orphan, fighting her way through, fighting off rape gangs, the stuff that we, have come to know. But this was a really interesting reveal to me, that the only way she could have spoken to Wesley in that way was from experience, from knowledge. It wasn't like observational. It was experiential. It was like, this is what happens. And somehow someone or something got a hold of this young girl and guided her into the, Federation, into Starfleet, and she got her shit together. And that was really empowering to watch that today. It was so what an interesting character. Another reveal of her, another layer to her. And that was fresh, was completely new to me. I don't even think I got it as I was shooting it. I may be wrong, but I really get it now. So that's something that was really powerful. Now, I go on and on at these end things, but the other thing, which was interesting to me. So we're talking about the coil, right? That Picard is going to have the engineering make up some coils to help these freighters. So in the beginning of the episode, that was all okay to do that. They were planning to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But by the end,
good point,
he said, no, we're going against the Prime Directive if we do that. and like really mess them up as they were expecting that. So it's like, I don't know, kind of odd little jump. Talking to you guys after these episodes, it's like I'm thinking this, and then I'm thinking that. You're so illuminating and thoughtful and mindful watching these shows. Wow, what a trip for me.
Good stuff. A lot of people, when you said trip, though, were thinking Enterprise. I know Eve was.
I'm thinking acid. I'm thinking Tierney's acid. What kind of trip I'm taking, baby?
Yeah. Good stuff. Cirroc, any final thoughts?
Yeah, really quickly. I thought Picard could have told the Breckians to Brexit.
Sensitive topics.
Is that bad?
Oh no!
Eve,
No, that was
is that a head shaker? Sorry
Head
for
scratcher.
Head shaker.
Head banger.
Head banger. So I'm just going to bring up one thing, and that is 2 people were lost, and we don't know if they were Onarans or Breckians,
Right.
if they were. We didn't if they were kids, adults. We have nothing on those 2 individuals, and I feel like that is not the right thing to do in Star Trek. You have to do a little bit of investigating on who those people that were lost in the transport. Literally, they could have had something to do with it. They could have not had something to do with it, and there was no explanation on that. So I kind of missed the boat on that follow up. I hate when they give us something and they don't circle back on it. That's my little nitpick for this episode. And yeah, it was an addiction episode. They're trying to tackle these really sensitive subjects, so I give them credit for trying to bite off something like this. Other shows at the time are just doing regular cop and robberies and and car chases and stuff. At least they're taking some kind of initiative to deal with these kinds of issues that affect all of us. So they don't always nail it, and they don't always get it right, but the fact that they're willing to venture into such a very messy subject matter, they deserve the kudos for that. So I'm happy that this episode I kind of liked it. Normally there's points when I watch episodes, I'm looking for the clock and like, how much time do I have left? I didn't really feel that in this episode. It moved along at a good speed for me, and they kept enough new things popping up for me to say, okay, another little twist in the story here, a little twist here. So for overall, I was entertained.
Mm-hmm. All right, everybody. Thanks for the fun. Melissa, Allison, Eve, Stephanie. Not you, Chris. Just kidding. Chris McGee especially. Marcia, Tierney, Mai, and Homer. Thank you all. This has been a great conversation. Everybody's always so smart and fun. We're so lucky.
Wow.
We'll see you next time, everybody. And until then, always remember that there's 7th rule.